Hi, and welcome to A Class of Their Own podcast, revealing the human stories behind their name. We will hear honest and intimate reflections from our guests who, despite their circumstances, shape a world that reflects their unique visions of success. Join me, Mira Magecha, to learn from these inspirational people and take the first step to make your own change. On today's episode, we're joined by Alex Ayin. Hi, Alex, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Thank you for coming along.
You're more than welcome. Great to see you.
I'm really excited about where this conversation might take us. But let's start with, who is Alex?
Who is Alex? I am a father. Got two young kids, 4 and 2, husband to great wife, Leanne. And I've been in the startup space pretty much since dropping out of my graduate scheme. So been at companies like Social Chain, Mercato, The Hook Group, Wiser, and I've recently launched a new media company called Elite Team Talks. There's
2 standout things that come to mind when I think about you. One is we haven't known each other very long, and your generosity and your kindness in just helping and supporting has been, amazing. So many people say they're going to do that and don't. And then your focus on high performance. And we'll get into that through the conversation, but I'm really excited for what we're going to talk about.
Same. And almost where that comes from, because from the podcast and what you shared, I don't talk about that stuff usually, the origins of it. So it'd be interesting to unpack.
So for you, what shows up in who you are today from your earlier childhood?
I'm mixed race. So my granddad's from Africa, Ghana. So my dad, they came to the UK back in like the 60s, 70s. And then growing up as mixed race, especially in the school in Manchester I was at, I never felt like I fit in any of the groups. And so I used sport as a way to really showcase or validate my worth or self-worth, I think, when I think back about it now. So I think that kind of shows up today because I'm always trying to get better or improve or push myself. And it's like, why? You get to a certain, it's like, why'd you keep doing that? So I think that comes from that environment. And then I would say the second thing you mentioned about the way I am with people, I think I get that from both sets of parents. So my dad was very well known in the rugby club, played at a really high level, was vice chairman. So he would go in, he would know everybody from the cleaner to the first team to the coaches, and he would socialize. He was great with people. One of the best people that I've ever experienced in making people feel comfortable and connecting with people. So I got that from him. And also my mum is a Geordie. So great fun, great value, loves a night out. Even to this day, she's one of the most sociable people I know. And so that mix, I think I got a lot of that in terms of being good with people from both of those two.
And so when you said, reflecting back, I didn't fit anywhere, did you notice that growing up? Or is that a reflection as you've come into adulthood or university years or at some point in your life? Or was that really apparent as you were growing up?
I noticed it, definitely, when I was growing up. I've reflected more on it since, but there was, back when I was growing up in like the 90s, there was still like open racism. Yeah. And not many people know this, but I got a nickname at school called Coconut, because that black and the white. And just stuff, because when you play in sports as well, people try and get to you and they say certain things. So I noticed it from that perspective. I also went to, I got into a good school. Both my parents come from working class backgrounds and really worked their way up. And I also noticed that a lot of the people that I went to school with, that I was friends with, came from, no fault of their own, but came from money or wealth, whereas I didn't. I grew up in Burnage. So then I was also going to a good school, but then going back to my local friends and community, like people trying to escaping the police, doing stuff, that they shouldn't be doing. So that also was, how do I fit in that kind of environment? So, but I do think it drives me, that background or that upbringing has led me to think I can do anything, because if I can compete with people that have had resources, or I've always thought I can still do it depending on whatever level or field that I go into.
And you talked about sport being a game changer for you when you were growing up, and you focused a lot of energy because at least that gave you some level of belonging.
Yeah.
What sports did you do, and where does that drive come from? Who pushed you to do that initially?
I played a lot of sports, but my two main ones were rugby and water polo. And you were like, water polo? A bit strange.
But water polo isn't really a thing that is played very much.
So my mum was county tennis champion. So she was great at sports. And I think she did a sports degree at Manchester. They both met in Manchester. She comes from a mining village in Newcastle. My dad comes from inner city London. And he was great at rugby, played London and England schoolboy level. And they both did sport at uni. So growing up with both of them, that was our thing as a family. I don't have
family enforced fun of playing sports.
Literally competing. Anything, whether it's like cards on a holiday or let's go do this. So I was very sporty growing up. The two I played was my dad was my coach. So from, I think 5, I started playing rugby, Manchester Rugby Club. Kept on going through the ranks, played a good level, but the biggest turning point for me was when I was 12, 13, I got a condition called Achilles tendonitis. And it basically means, some people get it when they're growing, like growing pains, but my Achilles didn't grow to the same level as one of my other leg. And so I went to the doctor, where I saw several surgeons, and in the end they were like, you just can't run on it for a year, I think 6 months to a year. So that was difficult, because at that period of my life, my identity was, I'm good at sports, I'm a rugby player. That's like all my friends' community, what I did on Saturday and Sunday was playing rugby. And I would probably say that is the fundamental big turning point in my life, because then we had a teacher come to the school in the September when I was 13, who was a water polo coach. He was my geography teacher, Simon Jones. Shout out Simon Jones. And he was like, anyone who's big and can swim, meet me in the pool at 6 a.m. When I was 13, I was thinking, there's no way I'm going to 6 a.m.
13 at 6 a.m. I'm sleeping.
But the only thing I remember, the surgeon said, the only thing you can do is swimming, because it takes the pressure off and it's good, you can keep your fitness doing the swimming. And I used to swim in primary school, not to a great level, but I could swim relatively well. So I went down and started training. After about 2-3 weeks, my dad was saying, you should go try it out. And he instilled a belief system in us. No one else had played water polo in that group. And we then went on to win the under 14s, under 16s and under 18s national championships in that kind of 4-year period. And 4 or 5 of the team played for Great Britain. And it came from him and his leadership and his personality and his belief in us that we could win things, especially because we never played before. And so that's how I got into the water polo. And I was thinking as well, I finished school in 2008, and 2012 obviously was the London Olympics. And so a lot of the team, that's what we were training for as well. We thought we could be into that squad, but I think they cut the funding until like 2007. So a lot of the team that were playing didn't go, and there wasn't much money in it. But for me, like the ability to go from never playing something or never doing something to being considered one of the best in that sport or in that field, I've then always tried to do that. If I think about my career at Social Chain, we were the underdogs, never done it before. Wise are the same thing. What I'm doing now is the same thing. So I think that has really formed a belief system in me and kind of driven my career path.
You've got this teacher who comes from nowhere and goes, let's go play water polo.
Yeah.
You, prior to that, had rugby.
Yeah.
And your dad was your coach of trying to get you to be the best. Unfortunately, you couldn't play anymore.
Yeah.
But you've also got this family background where you've seen them, or stories at least of them and how they have pushed themselves to do things outside of the norm, coming from a working class background because they went to university in Manchester, not to say that that's the only reason.
Yeah.
But you've seen this upbringing, you've been part of the story of the impossible, for a better term, is possible.
Yeah.
Is that a genuine narrative, or am I hearing something that you haven't really said?
No, that's genuine. So they both. So if I would, I would say the two biggest inspirations when I think back to my childhood were both sets of grandparents, because my granddad on my mum's side went to World War II, and it was him. I think he was in like a 400 person platoon, and only 8 of them made it to the safety area when they were coming off the boats, etc. And the stories he would tell me when I was growing up, what he went through. He used to be on the guns after that. Once they got there, he was controlling some of the guns, and the people that he was almost like his best mate, who was helping reload the guns, had his head blown off when he's next to him. And so I think what he's then made it back after that entire experience to the UK. And I think about my granddad on my dad's side and what he had to go through in Africa and moved the family to London for a better life. And like the chances of then that happening and then my parents meeting and then me coming out of that as a result, that really gave me a lot of inspiration growing up, and to try and push myself, especially when times are hard and feeling like I didn't fit in. But yeah, I think that was, I would say, reality.
But there's an innate ability, desire to want to achieve more than what society may kind of box you into and go, this is as much as Alex will ever do. Yeah.
And that's like one of my drivers is progress. I think about this when leading teams and people at work. I always feel like I need to be progressing. And when because I was on a graduate scheme, my parents saw that as like the biggest success. Like, he's gone to university, he's on a graduate scheme, Virgin, Richard Branson. And I dropped out, and they were like, what are you doing like with your life? But the real reason there's lots of different reasons that I've talked about previously, but I would say probably the real reason is I didn't feel like I could progress. I was trying things and doing things inside that graduate scheme, and I was like getting told off for setting up partnerships outside of what I was meant to be doing. And I was like, this is not for me. I feel like I need to be doing more or progressing quicker. I don't just want to be put in this box. And that's what I think the entrepreneurial journey, which you're now on, it gives you that. There's a lot of variety, there's a lot of challenges, there's a lot of areas which you will just have to get better at. And that's what I like. That's what I loved about sport. Like those areas I wasn't great. I wasn't the fastest swimmer. I was also fat.
Really?
Yeah, because I got Achilles tendonitis, so I ballooned in weight. And so I was like the chubby kid. I was never the fastest, not the strongest, not the most skilled really, especially in our team. But I always believed, and the coach was like, you'll work hard. And so in my mind, I was like, I can probably outwork a lot of people, which will then equal me getting on the team firstly, getting on the starting team, and then winning stuff. So that belief still stays with me today, or that value of just outwork yourself, outwork what I did last year, outwork what I did last month. And the biggest issue I've always found is because I'm competitive, it's a blessing and a curse, because then you're always like comparing, and like I'm on the peloton, like trying to beat like 55-year-old John in San Francisco, because he's like ahead of me on the leaderboard, which is, it's like, why are you doing that? So now I'm trying to reframe my mind to be competing with myself, but last year, which is significantly helping with that. I'm not like looking at my other friends, and like, because Steve now is like, one of the most successful entrepreneurs out there. If I was thinking as a competition, or that would just be so unhealthy for me mentally to keep going through. So I'm trying to just get better each day in different realms, especially as a parent. That's like one of the biggest challenges.
You talked about values.
Yeah.
What, if any, values do you live by?
So firstly, I would say probably family first. I love my family. I just flew up to see my mum for Mother's Day. I try and... so that was be one. Be there for your family. Be there for the people that care about you and that mean a lot to you is a big one for me. Number 2 is outwork the competition. I try and do that all the time. Or just doing a little more. So say you've done 10, 15 lengths in a pool. our coach, Simon Jones, was always like, what more could you do? Could you do one more? Could you do one? I said, in anything, I always think in that way. That's number 2. Number 3, I would say, is anything that happens negatively, I try and reframe it into, there's going to be an opportunity here. Mm-hmm. I've learned that through business, but also the injury when I was younger. And I've got loads of examples where that's then turned into something positive, or I've then been able to tell a story to someone else going through that similar situation, especially with having kids. We had 2 under 2, it was stressful. So now I've got friends going through that now, and I feel like I can help them because I've gone through the hard time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I would say a big one for me is treat people as you'd like to be treated. I always do that, whether it's, I try and learn everybody's name. I saw that. My dad was great at that. So, and I grew up in the 90s as a United fan. And Alex Ferguson was big on that, the little things, the marginal gains. So making sure that you say hello to the person on reception, that you sign that ball, that you do the extra thing in training, just do a bit extra. I'd say those are probably the ones I live by the most.
And so it sounds like a lot of sport and the ethos of being in a sporting team is what you live by as well. So it's not just, I go do sport. Actually, it sounds like it's part of who you actually are and who you will continue to potentially be as well.
Yeah, and I try and have that. If I'm talking about something or trying to inspire or teach one of the team at work about something or tell them about something, if I'm not living it, then it's just words. It's not action. So I stopped drinking back in 2018. That was a negative thing for me in my life. I wasn't good on alcohol. I'm trying more now with the eating and the nutrition. I was terrible. Like I said, I was a fat kid, chubby. So now I'm trying to reframe a lot of that in terms of my diets, my habits, my routines. What are the areas in your life that you want to be successful in? And I always then look at who is the best in those areas and then try and think, right, I don't want to be them, but what do I like about them that I can integrate into my own routine? So like in the mornings now I never used to meditate. Now I just meditate, get up earlier, do meditation, go to the gym. I try and always go to the gym before work, because before I was going afterwards, and then you have meetings and you're tired. This is a million reasons. Whereas now that's just my routine. Yep. I am a person that gets up, goes to the gym every day. And I think if you can train yourself to be who's the identity that you want to be, because we're all growing in loads of different areas, but who do you want to be? Who's the ideal version of you? And then it's not like a quick fix. You're not going to just get there overnight, but what can you do each day to contribute to that journey? That's what I think about. And then I've got a thing in my diary. Every Sunday, I get a notification. It's like, what went well this week? What did go well? What are you going to do next week to reach your goals? Goals are set at the start of the year. Who do you need to thank? Who's helped you? Who's contributed? Yeah. And the final thing is like, what are the lessons or the learnings? So things that you don't want to do again, mistakes that you've made. Might be a client pitch, might be the way you handle something at work. We all have it. But I don't think I was reflecting enough when I was younger. You just live, don't you? You're just trying to do stuff and you're living. And I think having systems like that is definitely helped me the older and the more I progress in my career.
Is that a career change, or is it also in your personal life? Because you said, who do I need to thank? And you talked about, or what went well or what didn't go so well. Your focus in terms of the examples you gave were all about work.
Career, yeah.
What about life?
Personal as well, yeah, okay. Because I'll give you an example. Kobe now is 4 years old. He's going through a stage of acting up, screaming when he's out, in mood swings. And I'm like, what are we, irrespective of what he's doing, he's 4, and my natural reaction is to be like, stop it, like, you've got such a good life, we're doing everything we can for you, and you're doing stuff to annoy your sister. But then I've got to reframe that and go, right, there is something that I can do. What can I do to make that environment better, or to stop that happening, or to do a different activity? And so I try and do it with not just work, but personal, whether it's my relationship, how I am with my parents is big. Like I don't often make the time. I think I could make more time because they're not going to be here forever. And so that's why last week I went to see my mum. I try and see my dad regularly. And also because we're in London and they're not, they're all in different locations. Just trying to get the grandkids to see them. So I'm like, right, how could we do a family holiday this year, last year before? So I'm always thinking, what could we do to improve different areas? And the way I see it is your family, your friends actually, because when you start in a company, that's usually the thing that goes, I noticed, because you're so involved with the people that you're around that sometimes your oldest friends you lose contact with, or you don't have the time or don't make the effort, not intentionally, just because you're just so busy. And then at the end of the day, you're knackered. So now I'm trying to think, right, how can I tie that into my life? So I'm doing the High Rocks next week in Copenhagen. I'm doing that with two of my friends from the Water Polo team from school, who I don't see regularly.
But actually you've got a weekend.
So it's like a weekend away, but it's tied into a health and fitness goal, which I wanted to do this year, but it's with them.
Yep.
So I'm like, how can I do more things like that, which ties in a few of the parts, which has helped.
So it sounds like a really positive journey and you're in a great positive place, but what have been some of the challenges? What are some of the lessons that you've learned that you wouldn't normally share and be vulnerable with?
I would say the one thing I wouldn't share usually is being someone that's high performing. Usually you have very addictive personality, like obsessive. Mm-hmm. The people that I know in that space are obsessive, can get obsessed about something, and I'm definitely fallen into that category. And the drinking was very much linked to that. And I wouldn't say it's difficult, isn't it? Because I wouldn't say I had a drinking problem, but obviously I did, because I would just drink on a Friday night, and sometimes I would just keep drinking the whole weekend and then come back on a Sunday. And so I really struggled with that. I would say that was some of the lowest moments of my life. Broke my hand, ruined some friendships during that time. And I just wasn't the person that I wanted to be. And I was like, I'm going to have to either make a change, a big change, otherwise I'm going to push my relationship away. I'm going to lose work, or the client might see it. It's just going to be terrible. Or worse, I'm going to end up in prison, or, something happened to me. And so I don't talk about it that often because I don't want to be preachy about stopping drinking. And I never say to other people, oh, you need to stop drinking. Like, you do whatever makes you happy. I just know for me, that was something which then was out of my control. Once I'd started drinking, then my actions, I felt, weren't in my control. And I was making bad decisions, which I would never make in my normal life. So I was like, right, I need to, and I'm very all or nothing, which is, I would say, positive, but also negative. Whether it's fitness, whether it's work, I'm just all in. And with the drinking was the same thing. So I needed to be nothing. I needed to just I am someone now, like the identity thing, that doesn't drink. But I would say that was one of the hardest things, yeah.
And do you not drink at all now? So you won't have a glass of wine or...
No. I would say I've had on one hand slip-ups. So on my wedding day, honeymoon, and 2 or 3 nights out with friends. But no, I've not drank probably a year, maybe 2 years now. So that was hard, I would say. And actually probably one which I don't talk about more, I should talk about it more, is leaving social chain. That was very difficult because we had built such strong relationships as a team. And there was loads of things which I won't go into that happened with the growth. I mean, we grew very fast and we expanded into lots of different markets, and which was great and exciting, but there was loads of things which people won't know or have seen. But leaving there, I think I then struggled because that, again, was a big part of my identity, and I was on the leadership team and I was helping with all the different strategic decisions and growth. To then have that gone, yeah. And I left on great terms. I had an unbelievable send-off. People said, really amazing things, which I still keep to this day and look back on it. But I think that kind of 6 months after I struggled mentally.
This episode is brought to you by Adaventa, a leading online classifieds group and champion for sustainable commerce. With over 25 digital marketplaces, including Marketplatz, Leboncoin, Mobile.de, Klein & Zanger, Fotocasa, InfoJobs, and Kijiji, and more, they connect millions of people to trade on a daily basis. Adaventa is committed to being purpose-driven and both an inclusive work and marketplace for everyone, by creating a space where everyone feels like they belong and are valued for their difference. To find out more information, click in the links in the show notes below. So talk to us about that struggle.
Yeah.
What was it about the identity of being with and part of Social Chain that you struggled with when it was no longer there 6 months later?
I think in anything in life, if you're known, if your reputation is associated to a sports team or work or if you're into drama, whatever it may be, that is sometimes some of the hardest things to deal with when you then don't have that anymore. And I think about my drinking as well. I was the life and soul of the party, the fun one, you know, the one who would start all the drinking games and the activities. So then it's like you start questioning yourself. Like questioning, well, who am I when I'm not that? Who am I when I'm not at Social Chain? And it made me reflect on what type of person do I want to be? Who am I without these people? And you almost have to be on your own 2 feet. And I've been thinking about this recently about identity, diversification, which is not like a common phrase. But because I speak to a lot of athletes, when they come to the end of their career, that is usually when they are the most depressed. Yeah. They lose that reputation, that community and people around them. And so the same way that you diversify your stocks and your investment portfolio, if we can do the same thing but for our identity, so that you're a father, a friend, an athlete, someone that is a business director or an entrepreneur, whatever it may be, but just so that you as a human being aren't ever just classified as one thing. And especially when you're working on something for like the Social Chain thing, I think why it impacted me so much was it was so much of my life. Like at stages we worked and lived in the office. Yeah. Like we'd spend days and days together. We went on every holiday together, really, and traveled around the world together. Every night out, every birthday, every social occasion, every WhatsApp group that you're in, you know, everything was
surrounded with the same group of people.
So much of it. And I kind of neglected my old friends and people from school and university and other areas and my family. So I think that was why it was so difficult for me personally. And I think there's a way I would have done that better, like I was talking about, like not giving or at least diversifying where your identity is in your own mind.
It sounds like you've done a lot of work and a lot of thinking in who you want to be and who Alex is going to be going forward.
Yeah.
I think about life in terms of seasons, because gone are the days where you start a job and that's what it is. Gone are the days where, fortunately or unfortunately, you start a relationship and you're in it for life. What season do you think you are in for your life right now? So,
great question. And I actually can relate to that a lot because I feel like I've just gone through the family season. Not gone through it, obviously. That's kind of with you for life. But in terms of the really difficult early years of having kids, not sleeping, that whole thing, anyone who's had a kid can appreciate that like challenge, because it puts strain on your relationship, your partner, your work, everything, especially with the no sleep. So I feel like I'm through the hardest part of that. And that's why now the next season for me is building something that I'm passionate about in a field which excites me, and also something of my own. Because I feel like a lot of the time, if I look back now, Social Chain, obviously Stephen Dom, I helped one of my really good friends with his company Magecha, now Vasori. the Hook Group and My Protein, working for Lucy Gorman, who's the CEO, all great people now with Wiser. Finn, who's one of my oldest friends. But then it's never been something that I've thought of or I've come up with or that's my passion. So I think the next season for me is how can I build something which gives back or educates? Because I would say something, if it was going to be unique to me, I need it to have value to other people. I love it when I deliver a workshop, do a training session, and you get the feedback where it's like, I never thought about it like that. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's changed the way I have my morning routine. That gives me energy from things which I've tried and experimented on and done myself. So I want to try as much as possible, experiment as much as possible, find what works from a leadership perspective, from a building a team perspective, emotions, psychology, all the things which I'm interested in. I'm just going to try and focus more on those and give more of my time and energy to that. And then the vehicle to kind of share that is through elite team talks, is through social media, is through doing conversations like this, that hopefully when the kids get older, they can then go use it, number one, get use or value from it. And number two, say, oh, dad contributed to people's lives. That's what I'd love them to say. I think about that a lot. Like, what would they say when they get older? Makes me a bit emotional thinking about it.
Oh.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's actually a driver.
Yeah, 100%. Because like I said, with my parents, I was very fortunate to have those two as role models. So I kind of want our kids to feel the same way. And also live a great life, but live a life that means something to them. I think having meaning in whatever you do is so important, but often we live, like if I think about that graduate scheme at the start of my career, I was doing that because of school wanted me to do that. Parents thought it was a good idea. Everything was, oh, you go to uni, you go down this path. I didn't really have any other things said to me at that time. But that wasn't, if I was to redo it, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have chosen that, but you're kind of in it. And I want them to think about what matters to them. What do they love doing? What do they enjoy doing? And like the head shop concept from Jim Collins, Good to Great, where what can you be the best in the world at? What does the world need? So it can't just be something if you're like really passionate about it, but then the world doesn't really need it. And then what can you be paid for? Like how can you make, that's the thing which I think a lot of people, especially people in the creative space, don't always think about. It's because they're thinking about the art. I always think that way. It's like, well, it needs to make money. It needs to drive some kind of commercial engine. So if they can nail that, I think you can live a fulfilling life. I was going to say happy, but I don't ever think happy is just kind of like I see happiness as 1 minute you can be happy, but the next minute you can be sad. The next minute you can feel guilt. So if you're trying to optimize for happiness, it's like you set yourself up to fail, because that's just not reality of life.
You can't be in that steady state forever.
You can't be in that steady state. Yeah. And things are out of your control. Someone could die. You could have a serious injury. Whereas I think you can aim for fulfillment, because that kind of is a mixture of a lot of those emotions, but it's not easy either. Like I don't think anything that I've done which has been easy has been as enjoyable. Social change was difficult. It looks great, when you see all the articles online, but it's just so hard, difficult. People saying no, getting loads of no's, going to big pitches, people laughing you out of the room. So I want them to think, what do I want to do? And I want them to work hard at it and get a lot from it. I'm just launching a new venture. I also still work at Wiser. So I'm so busy in terms of I'm on my phone all the time, I'm working late, I sometimes miss bedtimes twice, 2 out of 3 nights this week. I'm like, do I want to also be that dad? Like, will I reflect back in 10 years and think, why were you doing that for work when they don't actually want to spend time with you when they're 15? Whereas now they want you and they need you more. So that is the thing I'd say I'm struggling with the most, is the balance of life where I should give my time, because you've got your friends. My parents aren't getting any younger. My parents have had health issues. So that as well, I think that's, if I think about what's the hardest thing in my life, they're the hardest things I have to go through or deal with. And I feel this is like a coaching session because I never speak about it. I'm probably like I was at the start of the episode, where my wiring is find a way, work hard. You can do anything you put your mind to. You can go through it. Like
there are only so many hours in a day. So this is one thing that you can't change. It's what you can put into that time.
Yeah. And I'm also worried that I'll break. Sounds strange, but you hear about people having mental breakdowns, and because you got financial stress, family stress, work stress. I don't know whether I will or not, because I've never pushed myself to that limit, but I'm like, is this the lifestyle where you're getting up early, going to the gym, then working all day, then coming back to see the family? It's like a roller coaster. It's like you're never off. There's never time.
Hamster wheel.
Yeah, hamster wheel. And don't get me wrong, there's people in way harder situations, and I do think about that with my grandparents. It's like they went through so much. It gives me perspective when I think I've got something difficult. It gives me great perspective to think back to what they went through. But in my day, it's all filled with meetings, pitches, writing content, and then all of the family stuff. So that's what I'm worried about, is I might break, number one. And number two, will I regret not spending more time with the kids and putting them into nursery? Will I regret that? And also three, on the weekend, I'm like outdoorsy because of my parents and sporty. I'm like, should I be doing more drawing? Should I take them to drama? All stuff which is not in my zone. I feel like I should be exposing them more to things. So I would say those are the things which I struggle with.
You talked about the fear of pushing yourself too hard.
Yeah.
And breaking.
Yeah.
Is that a real and genuine fear?
So I'm very injury prone. Like with Achilles, I've torn my knee ligaments 3 times. I've had 18 different operations throughout my sports career. And I often think that my body that's going to come back to haunt me when I'm older. And now I'm starting to think more about my mind in the same way.
Yeah.
Whereas I'd never really thought, I never would meditate. I never would do any of that stuff, thinking about the mind. Whereas now I'm thinking, I do need to take more care of that part of me. Yeah. And I don't necessarily know how. So that's one area I need to get better at. It's something I'm trying to do more of this year. Because you hear stories, don't you? You hear it can get anybody, no matter how strong. I listened to a podcast with Dustin Poirier, MMA fighter. He's the one who beat McGregor. He's beaten some of the most famous fighters in the world, arguably one of the best fighters in the world. And he said when he after the Justin Gaethje fight that he was suicidal. Nobody knew. Yeah. Never told anybody. And you think he's got millions of pounds, he's got a family, he's got his charity, he's got a hot sauce company, so he's entrepreneurial, but he was suicidal. Couldn't believe it. And it was great that he said that, because I see myself as him, like outworks everybody. Not, I wouldn't say the most skilled, but he's just worked harder, got to a really successful point of his career. And he's a great guy, very charitable, does more for other people. And he was saying that, so I was thinking, I need to switch on to this, or at least integrate it into my kind of high performance habits or all that kind of stuff. I need to do more with the mind.
And it's part of high performance.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
It's got to be, because it's not all just about go, go, go. You've got to be able to focus and bring it back to who you are in your own mental state and mental capacity. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll make you clearer when you're thinking your thoughts. Because I've got so much going on upstairs. I always think I need like an outlet for that. That's why I'm hoping conversations like this will help.
What do you do for yourself then? So if you've got all of this going on, how do you take time where it is just, I need to take some time out, I need to relax? Yes, you've started some meditation, but what do you do for you?
I love the gym. I don't know whether that would classify though. Things I really like are going somewhere abroad and just sitting on a sun lounger with like a great book. I just never do that.
That's because you have 4-year-olds.
Yeah, I never do that.
And younger.
Yeah, but even before that, I didn't do that.
Okay.
Because I think there's something in my mind saying you need to be more productive or you need to be doing something. That's the thing I struggle with. It's just being.
Still.
Yeah, with the meditation, I really struggle with the meditation. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, right, I need to do this PowerPoint. I need to do prep for this. I've got to get Kobe and Sloane's food. I've just got so much. So I need to work on that. And a guy said, one of my best friends is a performance coach, Marius. And he gave me an analogy that if you go and stand in a stream and the water's coming towards you and you're just on a rock in the middle of the stream, imagine the stream are your stresses, your thoughts, etc. They're always going to keep coming, and you can choose to pick them up, but you can also choose to put them back down, and then they keep going in the stream. And just that concept is helping me to see actually, you don't have to deal with that right now. That can wait till tomorrow, or that can wait till next week. And also saying no more. I say yes to so much. Spoke to Ollie, really good friend. He runs Flight Story, which is one of Steve's companies. And he was saying, you just need to say no more. And because we're similar, it's like we say yes too much to so much. Because I try and do things for other people and pay it forward. It's like, again, one of my values. But if that's going to be detrimental to the health or the family, I just need to be better at the prioritization, life prioritization. Because it's not like work or life. You know, people talk about the balance. It's kind of just like you're just living and you've got lots of different things happening. But you need to think, right, was that the best way I've spent my last week? So yeah, look into that.
There's some deep thoughts coming out and deep reflections. So for me, I think there's a piece coming out that you probably need to spend some level of time with your own thoughts, not doing anything, not having any priorities, not being productive. I was having exactly the same conversation with my best friend the other day about she's not feeling very well. So she was literally sitting on the sofa, feeling sorry for herself and going, I've done absolutely nothing. She's got twins.
Yeah.
And I was trying to have a conversation with her to say, you need this. This is your body shutting down because you're not giving yourself enough time.
Yeah.
So how do you create the space to enable you to do that? And that doesn't need to be every day. It doesn't need to be every week. But just allowing yourself that space to have these thoughts.
Yeah. What do you do? Do you like schedule it in your diary? Do you, like, because I'm just trying to think in practice, where would I do this? On the commute, maybe?
So I personally do it on my dog walk.
On your dog walk, okay.
I don't, on the whole, unless I'm having, I don't know, or I've got to really do something, I will just walk with my dog. I won't have earphones on. I won't listen to anything. It's when I'm walking.
Interesting.
When I walk to the gym, when I walk wherever, I will try not to have external influences and I will just observe. Sometimes it might be observing where I am or what I'm doing or what other people are doing, but most of the time it goes internal.
That's really interesting because I would only ever walk anywhere with my headphones on. Yeah. But that's probably part of the problem.
And if there is a problem, I'm not saying there is a problem.
Yeah.
But personally for me, I love walking and just not having anything around me.
Yeah. When you said about the influences as well in my life, I actually think growing up in Manchester is big. You know, about the working hard.
Right.
Our symbol's the working bee. I grew up in the 90s as a United fan with the class of 92. And there's all the Alan Hansen quote, you can't win anything with kids. So I've always kind of internalized that mentality of, yeah, we can. It doesn't matter who you are, what background you're from, what age you are. If you've if you've got the right character, if you've got the right work ethic, if you're as a team, if you can work together as a team, that's the thing. I've always been in teams, whether it's sports teams, business teams. That's why I'm fascinated about how you can get teams to work together, because United now are not where we used to be. Yeah. And it's down to like the culture, the environment, the infrastructure, how you treat people, the communication, the vision, all that kind of stuff. I'm like interested in that element. But I think it came from growing up in that city with that kind of work ethic, and we can do anything. Yeah. And also being a United fan.
But I think it's also come from a lot of productivity is the key to moving forward, whereas actually we do need to enable ourselves and allow ourselves to take some time for ourselves so that we can create more mental capacity to be able to move forward. And that does mean we need to be still. Yeah. And being still can be whatever that is to you versus somebody else. Being still can take on different meanings. Yeah. I feel like we've just gone down a little coaching session, a mini 10-minute coaching session. Yeah. We started really early in terms of you talking about your mixed heritage. Yeah. Does that still play a part of who you are today?
I think about this because my African heritage, I don't feel anywhere near as connected to it as I could be. And I think that is due to not spending time with that part of the family as much as I could do. So, and I also said to my dad, we should go back to Africa, especially with the kids, with Kobe. And I've not done that yet. So there's a reason for that. I need to embrace it because I'm a believer in that carries weight into who you are today still, your heritage and where that comes from. So I don't think about it consciously at all. And it's not in our day-to-day life. My wife's not from African background, so whereas I would want to. And I actually saw when I was stopping drinking, I spoke to a therapist, which is great to kind of change my mind on certain things. And she also said to be still more. Obviously, not taking that board. But she was also like, try and find out more about your grandparents and the culture. So I actually did that with my dad last year. And he sent me a load of pictures of some of the family, especially some of the family in Africa. He sent me some videos of relatives, etc. And I just asked him what he went through growing up. And he never really shared that with me, which helped. So I never, like at 15, he was like the provider because his dad did 2 jobs going out. So he was like the one in the house who's got the kids because it was him, his brother and his sister just at home, straight from school, no one else at home because both parents were working. So learning more about your family and asking the questions, I think is really important because I don't know whether it's just me, but it's not something that I've ever delved into much. And especially once you leave home, you don't have the content, you don't have the photo books, there's no reason for you to necessarily bring it up. So it's like an area in my life where I'm interested in and I should explore more. It's just finding the time. And this conversation's helped because that could be something, again, where I dedicate more time to just exploring and it might bring us closer like as a father-son.
Yeah. We started the conversation with who is Alex? So I want to take us full circle to who is Alex based on the journey and the conversation we've just had. And is there anything you would change about reintroducing yourself as to who Alex is?
I would still say I'm a father first. That's the thing in my mind, which I want to be the best at, is that I want to try and be the best dad or husband. That's like number 1 for me. And then number 2, I didn't say anything about my race, I don't think. When I introduced myself, did I?
I don't think you did. Not in your introduction. Shortly after, yes.
Yeah. So I would probably go into that more. A mixed race background, proud to be from African heritage. So I think that's an area which I would definitely want to introduce myself more. And also that I'm not even though I try to live a high performance lifestyle, whatever you want to call that, I'm by no means the finished article. There's so much more progress and development that I need to go through. I need to understand my mind, take more time. So I'm a work in progress.
We all are.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the conversation, Alex.
Thank you.
Thanks. If you enjoyed that conversation, then please share A Class of Their Own podcast with your friends and family and keep spreading the word to those that haven't discovered us yet. It makes a huge impact on our ability to have the people you want. Keep being you through connection, learning and play. You are a class of your own.